Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a story that honestly goes way, way beyond sports. We are deconstructing how a small-town boy from Ranchi, someone with a totally unorthodox style, completely redefined leadership. And I'm not just talking about leadership out there on the cricket pitch. I mean the kind of leadership that translates directly into the corporate boardroom, your weekly team meetings, and really, your own personal professional journey. So we're going to map out the true anatomy of a modern leader.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll kick things off with the small-town catalyst, trace the evolution of a captain, translate all of that into the leadership playbook, look closely at grooming the next generation, and finally, wrap up with perfecting the system.
All right, Section 1, the small-town catalyst.
So before Dhoni came along, Indian cricket was pretty much heavily monopolized by massive urban power centers, places like Mumbai, Delhi, Bengaluru, Chennai. But Dhoni, he brought this inherent defiance to that whole system. He was completely untouched by that big city urbanity, and because of that, he became this massive beacon of hope for small-town India. He basically proved that supreme confidence didn't require a metropolitan zip code. That unique background forged what we're calling the Dhoni system. Now, you probably know him as Captain Cool, but here's the thing, it wasn't just a mood. It was a highly deliberate psychological strategy of emotional detachment and objective problem solving. To put this into perspective, think about this super specific anecdote from a 2015 match in Cuttack. India had just suffered a massive, brutal collapse against South Africa. The crowd was furious. They grew incredibly hostile and literally kept interrupting the game by hurling water bottles onto the field. In the face of all this absolute chaos and frankly public humiliation, what did Dhoni do? Well, he quietly sat under the clock tower, smiled, and then just calmly walked onto the pitch and started picking up the garbage himself. Utterly grounded, completely detached from the panic around him.
Moving on to Section 2, the evolution of a captain.
Now here is the real hook. Dhoni wasn't actually born Captain Cool. He really wasn't. He actually had a somewhat flawed, excitable start, and he had to actively evolve his leadership style to reach that iconic Zen state we all know. If we trace his timeline, and this is based on some really great exact observations from former India pacer Irfan Pathan, who actually played under him across these different eras, we see a massive, massive shift. Back in 2007, during the T20 World Cup, Dhoni was newly appointed, and honestly, pretty excitable. Pathan noted that Dhoni would literally sprint from one absolute end of the field to the other just to micromanage his bowlers. But watch how he progresses. By the 2011 World Cup, he had matured into a deeply objective decision-maker. And by the time we hit the 2013 Champions Trophy, the transformation was complete. He was calm, he let the bowlers control their own game, and most importantly, he had learned to implicitly trust his slow bowlers and spinners in those high-pressure crunch situations. He went from being a micromanager to a macro trustee. Yet, despite this massive tactical evolution over the years, one thing remained remarkably, almost stubbornly constant, and it's the number 5, just 5 minutes. According to Pathan, whether it was 2007 or 2013, Dhoni's team meetings were highly efficient and always lasted exactly 5 minutes. There was no overthinking, absolutely no endless corporate droning, just clear, concise, in-and-out communication.
Section 3, the leadership playbook.
And this brilliantly illustrates how we can pivot from on-field cricket tactics to universal corporate team-building lessons. Because, let's be real, the strategies Dhoni employed to win global trophies are the exact same strategies you need to build high-performing teams in any office environment. Distilling some core insights here, we can basically map out Dhoni's fundamental team-building rules. First up, prioritize the team over the individual. Personal ambitions, they never superseded the collective goal. Second, tackle issues, not individuals. When failures happened, and they always do, the focus was strictly on solving the objective problem, not assassinating a player's character. Third, trust and empower your team. Just like he learned to trust his spinners back in 2013, a great corporate leader has to trust their off-field specialists during high-pressure projects. You have to give them autonomy. And fourth, build relationships beyond work. At the end of the day, it's about human connection, which creates a vital safety net of trust.
Honestly, if you take away just one single phrase from his entire management style, let it be this: become a coach, not just a boss. Right? A boss dictates, but a coach fosters an inclusive culture. Dhoni never, ever believed in pitting his team members against each other just to drive some sort of artificial toxic competition. Instead, he made absolutely sure every voice was heard, creating an environment where healthy debate actually led to better, unified execution.
Let's look at Section 4, grooming the next generation.
You see, true leadership isn't just about what you achieve while you're in charge. It's really about the talent pipeline you leave behind. Rohit Sharma made a great point about Dhoni's unique ability to act as this sort of ultimate mentor-in-chief. He made sure a young player never felt insecure no matter how bad their performance was or how stressful the match situation got. In fact, when Rohit was struggling super early in his career, going through a really terrible rough patch, Dhoni didn't drop him. Instead, he famously promoted Rohit up the order to open the batting during that 2013 Champions Trophy. He provided this incredible shield of composure that allowed raw talent to finally step up and flourish.
And then we have this incredible 1-2 punch from Virat Kohli, who praised Dhoni's tactical brilliance and his unmatched ability to handle pressure. But the real story here happens totally behind the scenes. Back in 2012, the selectors actually wanted to drop a struggling young Kohli from the Test squad. But Dhoni stuck his neck out. He completely protected Kohli's spot, he shifted Kohli to the incredibly crucial, high-pressure number 3 batting position and deliberately groomed him as the next leader. That single move allowed for a remarkably smooth, entirely ego-free transition of power when the time finally came.
And finally, Section 5. Perfecting the system.
Now, to truly grasp the gravity of Dhoni's systemic impact, we really have to contextualize his legacy against his legendary predecessor. Which brings us to a fascinating, highly debated question among fans and analysts alike. Who actually influenced more young careers? Was it Sourav Ganguly, or was it MS Dhoni? It's a brilliant question that sparks some natural friction because, let's face it, both of these guys were absolute titans of the game.
So let's juxtapose these two icons based on the general analytical consensus. When Ganguly took over, Indian cricket was pretty fractured. He came in and acted as the ultimate disruptor. He broke down those regional lobby systems, actively backed raw talent from way outside the traditional power centers, and instilled a really gritty fighting culture. He essentially taught the team how to look their opponents right in the eye. But Dhoni took that incredibly solid fighting foundation and turned it into a seamless, repeatable machine. He removed the fear of failure entirely, and he perfected a system where your role mattered way more than your short-term form.
So the crucial point is, when we break down this legacy, it helps to think of it in almost historical terms. Ganguly was kind of like the Aristotle of modern Indian cricket, right? He was the architect who shaped the philosophy, the belief, and the confidence when the team was basically in ashes. Dhoni, on the other hand, was the Alexander. He was the tactician who took that belief, executed the grand vision, actually conquered the world with ICC trophies, and perfected the culture by just completely eradicating fear. They are both absolutely essential. One built the runway, and the other taught them how to fly.
Ultimately, when we try to define Dhoni's legacy, it really isn't just about those gleaming World Cup trophies sitting in a display cabinet. His most profound achievement was cultivating a dressing room that was completely 100% free of fear, a culture where making a mistake wasn't a punishment, but an actual stepping stone. And it was this exact environment, this total freedom and backing, that allowed generational talents like Ravichandran Ashwin, Mohammad Shami, and Jasprit Bumrah to aggressively thrive and express themselves on the world stage.
Which leaves us with this thought. Take a step back and look at your own teams. In your own professional arena, whether you manage 3 people or 300 people, are you building a culture of fear, where mistakes are punished and micromanaged? Or are you building a system of freedom, where trust creates champions? Definitely think about that as you walk into your next team meeting. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.
Welcome.